Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're doing something a little bit different for this explainer. Normally, we're looking at these massive data-heavy research papers or really sweeping historical texts. But today, we're doing the exact opposite. We are dissecting a piece of source material that is remarkably brief and, honestly, incredibly mysterious. It's an absolute masterclass in minimalism. And by the time we're done here, you're going to see just how much weight a tiny string of words can actually carry when we really apply our structural lens to it. Let's just jump right in.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here it is, the literal entirety of our source material today. 4 words. What is the obsession? Just let that stark, isolated phrase hang in the air for a second. There's no introduction, right? No preamble, no conclusion. It's just this sudden, arresting interruption of thought. Now, to the untrained eye, sure, it might just look like a random fragment, but to us, it's a perfectly self-contained universe of inquiry.
To really grasp the structural reality of what we're looking at, we have to recognize that this artifact gives us 100% inquiry and exactly 0 answers. Think about that. The author gives us no safety net, no resolution, and absolutely 0 data to back up whatever it is they're investigating. They've just dropped this pure, unadulterated question right into the void. It's a super bold rhetorical strategy, and it basically demands that we, the readers, do all the heavy lifting. Section 1. Anatomy of the question. Breaking down the mechanical syntax. Let's keep moving. Let's step through the syntax and see exactly how this builds. Step 1, we start with what. This is the trigger, right? It initiates the search for information. Then, step 2, is, which grounds the whole thing entirely in the present state. This isn't some historical reflection, it is happening right now. Step 3, the. Now, this is vital. It's a definite article, meaning it implies a specific, known subject that the author assumes we already understand. And finally, step 4, obsession, the ultimate focal point. This is what delivers the emotional payload for the entire sequence.
Section 2. Focusing on obsession and the weight of the focal point.
Now, looking closely at our source, the word obsession isn't being used here as some dry clinical term you'd find in a psychology textbook. Not at all. The author invokes it as an inescapable magnetic center. It's a really heavy, emotionally charged word that suddenly elevates the whole text from just a casual question into this profound observation of human behavior. It implies repetition, fixation, and this complete inability to look away.
So the crucial point is, it only took exactly 4 isolated words for this author to establish that profound sense of fixation. Most writers literally need entire chapters to frame an existential dilemma, right? But our source does it in 4 keystrokes. It's either an absolutely astonishing display of linguistic efficiency, or, maybe they just accidentally hit send too early. Actually, scratch that. Either way, the impact is undeniable.
Section 3. The void of context, or what isn't there.
There's just this massive imbalance to the inquiry. On one hand, we've got this tiny sliver of textual evidence, what we actually know. We know a question exists, and we know it centers on an obsession. But then contrast that with the vast echoing void of what's missing, which is, well, almost everything. Who is obsessed? What are they obsessed with? Why does it even matter to the author? We are completely severed from any surrounding context. And honestly, that missing space becomes just as loud as the words themselves.
And the structural minimalism goes even deeper than just missing context. Think about the metrics here. 4 words, 0 punctuation, 0 capitalization. In an era where we rely so heavily on grammar to guide tone, the author deliberately strips all of that away. There isn't even a capital W to kick things off. But the most staggering architectural choice here, the absolute glaring absence of a question mark. And this brilliantly illustrates how the absence of that question mark fundamentally transforms our source material. Because there's no punctuation to formally close the sentence, it stops being this direct, demanding interrogation. Instead, it becomes a lingering, unresolved thought. It's like a sigh whispered into a quiet room. It just kind of trails off, leaving us completely suspended in the ambiguity.
Section 4. Turning the question inward. The minimalist mirror.
Because the author actively withheld the actual subject of the obsession, this text forces us to project our own context onto it. It's basically a linguistic Rorschach test. We really have to ask ourselves, is the author critiquing some external societal trend that they just find baffling? Or is this an intimate internal confession? Are they looking in the mirror, questioning their own fixations? The absolute brilliance of this text is that it seamlessly supports both interpretations at the exact same time.
So, as we wrap up our structural analysis, we can summarize what these 4 isolated words ultimately represent for us. They are a perfectly constructed linguistic puzzle. They act as a stark, modern artifact stripped of all unnecessary decoration.
And most importantly, they serve as a mirror for the reader, inviting us to supply that missing context from our own lives. This is exactly why tearing down a text mechanically is so deeply rewarding. You start to realize just how much architecture goes into a mere 4 words.
Which leaves us with really the only logical conclusion for this explainer, turning the literal source text directly back onto you. As you go about your day today, observing the world, observing your own habits, I want you to carry this specific syntax with you. Look at the noise, look at the fixations around you, and ask yourself, what is the obsession?